US President Joe Biden has said that he is hopeful for a Gaza ceasefire within a week. Now, his comment suggests that the war is close to a major turning point. Biden has said that Israel has agreed not to engage in military activities in Gaza during the holy Muslim month of Ramadan, set to begin on the 10th of March. But just how close are we really to a ceasefire is the question. Who are the players who could potentially block it next week? And what does the draft truce proposal even entail? What do we know? Let's dig deeper. Here's what Joe Biden assured today. He says that a ceasefire deal could come as soon as next week. Biden's comments, recorded on Monday and broadcast on Tuesday, come as negotiators try to hammer out the first extended truce deal in a war that has completely obliterated the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. Earlier on Monday, Biden said he hoped a ceasefire would come by Monday, that is the 4th of March, and we have seen some momentum building, at least in terms of meetings between the stakeholders. The mediators, including the US, seem hopeful for a breakthrough in the current situation. It seems they are inching towards a deal. But you see, there is still plenty of room for skepticism, for pessimism, mostly from the side of Israel. There seem to be positive signs of progress, considering Israel was part of the talks that took place in Paris last week, where the current truce offer was agreed upon. It was attended by Israel, the United States, and mediators from Egypt and Qatar. Considering the way the last truce collapsed in November after a week, this is the most serious push for a ceasefire since then. Yet, Israel has confirmed that they are close to accepting the deal. Now, as far as Hamas is concerned, well, they are not as optimistic as the mediators. In fact, they have called Biden's remarks premature. They are currently reviewing the truce offer. You see, they are not satisfied. They claim that there are still significant gaps that need to be bridged. Now, you must be wondering, what does this truce offer propose? We have access to details, and here's what it entails. First and foremost, it offers a 40-day pause and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners for Israeli hostages at a ratio of 10-1. The proposal also suggests that both parties stop their military operations completely. Aerial reconnaissance operations over Gaza will stop for 8 hours a day. All Israeli hostages, including women, children, elderly, and the sick, must be released in exchange for a specific number of Palestinian prisoners. Further, there will be a gradual return of all displaced civilians except men of military service age to the northern Gaza Strip. The truce offer proposes that after commencing the first phase, Israel will reposition its forces away from densely populated areas in the Gaza Strip. There will be a commitment to allow 500 trucks per day of humanitarian aid into the Palestinian enclave. Rehabilitation of hospitals and bakeries in Gaza will be allowed, including the entry of fuel for these purposes. And lastly, Israel will have to agree to the entry of heavy machinery and equipment to remove the rubble and assist with other humanitarian purposes in Gaza. On the other hand, Hamas will have to pledge to not use these machines and equipment to threaten Israel. Now, these are the conditions proposed for the first phase of ceasefire. So the question is, what is stopping Hamas from jumping on it? You see, the offer appears to stop short of Hamas's main demands. For them, a ceasefire must include a commitment for a permanent end to the war and Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. And currently, the truce offer does not cover Hamas's demand for as many as 1,500 detainees to be freed. Moreover, the release of Israeli hostages who are soldiers or healthy men of fighting age also finding no mention in the offer. In Gaza, there are mixed feelings about the prospect of a truce. They want permanent end to the war, and why shouldn't they want anything less than permanent ceasefire? Nearly 30,000 Gazans have been killed in Israeli bombardment. Over 70,000 people have been injured. The Palestinian enclave has been left to ruins.
We hope it will be a permanent ceasefire. We don't want to go back to war because war after the first truce destroyed us and destroyed our houses. It's been 3 months that we are displaced. We are tired from migration. This is a migration. We are staying in nylon tents, can you imagine? There is no food, no drink, there are no basics of life. We hope for a permanent ceasefire and we go to our places. It's true, there are no houses, but we hope to go back to our places. We don't want to stay displaced. This is our only hope.
If the truce is like the previous one and they would start war again after it is over, we don't want it. And if we can't go to the north, then a truce is not needed. Let's keep the war until it is totally over. We want a permanent ceasefire, not a truce after which they start the war again. This is all useless. And if there would be a truce, how will we go according to the age they specified? How do we take the children? We can't leave our children behind and move. We need to bring them with us.
I hope from God that there will be a commitment to a truce so people can catch their breath and heal their wounds, and so we reduce the daily casualties. There are 150 to 200 martyrs daily among the people. This is huge loss for our people, youth, men and women.
And so while delegations from Hamas and Israel, both in Qatar this week, discussed the ceasefire plan, the reality is there are several gaps that need to be bridged. The mediators look very optimistic, but if it was us reading the tea leaves, both Israel and Hamas may end up blocking this deal as it stands right now. You see, it's not just Hamas. Even Israel is adamant as far as its demands are concerned. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected as delusional an earlier Hamas counter-offer for a ceasefire. In the earlier offer, Hamas had suggested that all hostages would go free when Israel withdraws from Gaza and an agreement would be reached on an end to the war. But Netanyahu is adamant. There will be no halt in the war until Hamas is eradicated. And this is despite Biden's warning that Israel could lose international support unless it takes more steps to spare civilians. But the international pressure does not seem to bother Netanyahu. He has been threatening to attack Rafah, the last city on the southern edge of the Gaza Strip, where over half of its 2.3 million residents are sleeping rough in makeshift tents or buildings. The U.S. has warned that it opposes this plan. In fact, the U.S. says Israel must take into account the safety of Palestinians. But a brazen Netanyahu has declared total victory is our goal, quote unquote. On Monday, Netanyahu called Hamas's demands as from another planet. He says that the ball is in Hamas's court. They have to accept Israel's latest offer, and that is where the two sides stand at the moment. And this brings us to a bigger question. Because the war does not just affect Gaza and Israel, it has impact across West Asia. Even if there is a ceasefire in Gaza, will the war against the Houthis end? Today, the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah struck Israeli spy equipment at Al-Ramta and Rovesat al-Alam sites in Sheba Farms. It's an area claimed by Lebanon but captured by Israel in the 1967 war. Hezbollah also said it hit an air control base in Mount Meron in northern Israel. They say this was in response to Israel's airstrike on the vicinity of Baalbek on Monday. And the Israeli army responded by carrying out strikes against the Hezbollah sites in southern Lebanon. The recent escalation in the exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah now has the potential to put at risk a political solution to the Gaza conflict. Thousands of miles away, the Yemen-based rebel group Houthis are keeping the pressure on the U.S. Over the weekend, Houthis' missile missed a U.S.-flagged oil tanker in the Gulf of Aden. The Iran-aligned group has stepped up attacks on ships. Since November, repeated Houthi drone and missile strikes in the Red Sea and Bab al-Mandab Strait have heightened risks to international shipping. And this is their way of showing solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. US and British forces have responded with several strikes on Houthi facilities, but have so far failed to halt the attacks. As you can see, it's no longer about regional stability. International peace and stability are at risk. It is high time that a ceasefire in Gaza comes into play. It is, after all, in everyone's best interest. A ceasefire will reduce the risk of violence spreading further across the region. It will prevent further suffering, pain, and loss of life. Can the stakeholders set aside their vested interests and work towards achieving peace? Let's hope so. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.